Hi everyone, it's Sherry Carroll here with a really quick technique called dry embossing with hero art stencils. So here I've created a card and I've used the lotus leaf stencil and I've ran it through my Big Shot machine with a little bit of foam to create an embossed background. I have my Big Shot out and I'm going to go ahead and put my platform in, but I will open up the tab 2, so that is hanging off the side. So I only have the platform in tab 1, and here I've cut up a mouse pad, and these are a little bit thinner mouse pads. I'll show you how thin. And so I'll lay one on top of my platform, and next for the sandwich I'll go ahead and put down one cutting pad. And now I can go ahead and lay down my stencil. So this is the Hero Arts Lotus Flower stencil. And then my paper goes on top of the stencil. So it has a hard surface, but yet it's squishy enough. And now I'm going to put my other mouse pad down on top of that. So that'll push the paper into the stencil. Oh, I want to turn my mouse pad around because it does have like a neoprene side. So I want the smooth side of the mouse pad. So now I can put my final cutting pad down, and I want this all to sit on top of each other, but it's kind of slippery, so I'll just readjust this before I send it through. So I'll just push that in place so everything's sitting right on top of each other. And once I have that ready to go, I can go ahead and crank the handle and it goes through really smoothly. So I'm using the two mouse pads so that I'm not really jamming this through on my Big Shot. I don't want to ruin anything. So here is my embossed background with my stencil. So I've cut my paper up to how I want it to sit on my card, and here I'm using the paint brush strokes, it's a new set, and some pale tomato dauber. So what I want to do is I'm going to stamp this paint stroke in between these cut papers. So I'm kind of measuring here, and I don't want this to really go off the side, although once I put water on it I imagine that it will kind of go off the side. So I'm kind of measuring this stamp up to the size of the card, and I'm just tapping the stamp with my dauber. And so next I want to lay down a towel real quick, and I've used this a lot. You can tell it's really colorful. And I'll go ahead and get this stamp a couple sprays of water, and this really makes those dauber inks really fluid. And so I want to make sure that everything's lined up the way I want it because it is on the main card and I don't want to have to redo this. So I'm put my other little block down at the bottom to hold the card down for when I do my stamping. So since this has water on it, it stays wet for a really good time, long time. I'm going to go ahead and blot up just a little bit of this so it doesn't seep into the inside of the card. I've decided I wanted to add a couple more of the brush strokes, and I'm going to have this going in a different direction. So again, I'm tapping the dauber onto my stamp, and I'm grabbing a paper towel. I'm going to go ahead and put this on the inside so I won't have to worry about the seepage and having to wipe off the stamp. So I'll go ahead and put that little block back down. That keeps my card from flopping up while I'm trying to stamp. And I'm going to give this a mist of water. And I like to spray it about 2 or 3 times and just make sure you get all the area. So with my big head in the way, I'm going to go ahead and stamp this onto my card. Next I'll be stamping my embellishment piece, and I have the heart that's also from the paintbrush stroke set. And for this one I'm going to do some white embossing. So I have my anti-static from EK Success. I just got this. It smells like baby powder. It's wonderful. So you just kind of brush that onto the paper and it keeps the embossing powder from sticking to the paper. So once I have that down, I'll go ahead and use my Versamark ink and I'll tap this onto this heart brush paint stroke stamp, and it's really lovely. It's got a lot of great detail. So once I have that inked up, I'll go ahead and just stamp that onto my white cardstock. And when I have that well pressed in, I can go ahead and get my white embossing powder out and go ahead and sprinkle that on and then do some heat setting with my heat gun. Next I'm going to be stamping this rectangle brushstroke stamp on top of the heart, and I'm using the Tide Pool Dauber, and I do like to shake these up a little bit. I don't know why. I don't know if I need it. It's just kind of habit for me. And I'll just kind of draw onto my stamp and just kind of fill in all those areas, and you can just use a swiping motion or a dabbing type motion. And again, I'm just going to use some water on this because it really helps move that ink around, and you can see where it's just slightly wet, and it helps move that ink around the embossed image. And so I'll go ahead and press that in, and I like to let this sit in the paper just a little bit so that it can soak in. And once I'm happy with that, I'll go ahead and just pick that up. And now I can kind of move this around and get that water color kind of flowing in, and it'll dry kind of variegated. Next I'll be die cutting this into this tag shape, and you do want the paper to dry completely before you want to die cut, because if the paper's wet it will not give you a crisp cut. It'll be kind of a mushy paper and it'll kind of tear a little bit. So go ahead and let that dry and then use your die cut and run it through your Big Shot. And I'll go ahead and pull this off, and now you can see how that looks. I've started some assembly on my card. I've put my little embellished piece on with a little bit of gray striped baker's twine, and here I'm stamping my love message with charcoal ink. And the charcoal is really nice because it's not quite black, so it becomes slightly opaque so you can see the color underneath. I have one last element to stamp for my card, and I'm using the pale tomato dauber again, and here I'm just going to go ahead and use this directly onto this flower stamp, and this time I won't be using water. I wanted to show you how crisp these stamp just by dabbing them on and stamping them onto the white paper. So you get a really nice crisp image even though they're fluid. To finish things off, I put my flower on top of my heart embossed piece, and up close you can see the detail of this heart. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial on dry embossing with Hero Art stencils.